Segment 2, Nikud Shalosh, Nikud Beit, Gadol o Katan. Through this segment, you'll learn how to describe objects using adjectives. In the current Jonah episode, we find the sailor asking whether Jonah is holding keli tov, a good piece of baggage, or perhaps you could render it a good container. We call this combination of a noun, keli, followed by an adjective, tov, an adjective phrase. The important thing to observe about this phrase is that it is not a complete sentence. It simply reads, a good container. It does not say, a container is good, thereby forming a complete sentence. You'll learn how to do that later. What we're focusing on right now is known as an adjective phrase, and it is not making a full sentence statement. As you've been memorizing vocabulary for this particular module, Shtaim Nikud Shalosh, you may have noticed that the adjectives present not just one form, but 4 forms. Thus, for the adjective gadol, meaning big, we are offered masculine singular, gadol, feminine singular, gadolah, masculine plural, gadolim, and feminine plural, gadolot. The present segment will explain why Hebrew offers 4 different forms for a single adjective, unlike languages such as English, and how to use those appropriately when you make descriptions. Since adjective phrases are governed by a threefold connection involving number, gender, and definiteness, the remaining material in this segment will be organized around those 3 topics: the number link, the gender link, and the definiteness link. Let's begin then with the number link. We'll introduce this using masculine phrases, but the same would hold true for feminine. The fundamental principle of the number link is this: if the noun we're wishing to describe is singular, we must use the corresponding singular form of the adjective. Conversely, if the noun that we are describing is plural, we're obliged to use the plural form of the adjective. Thus, since keli, the noun, is singular, we must use the singular form of the adjective tov. Similarly, if the noun is plural, we must use the plural form of the adjective. Consequently, if we're describing not keli but kelim, containers, plural, then the form of tov we must use will be the plural form, tovim, resulting in the adjective phrase, kelim tovim. Let's transition now from the number link to the gender link. And here we'll focus on feminine phrases by way of example. However, what we're saying about feminine phrases would be true for masculine phrases as well. Now we'll switch to oniyah, a feminine noun, as the target noun which we wish to modify. If we wish to describe oniyah as a good ship or boat, since oniyah is feminine, therefore the form of the adjective tov which we use must also be feminine. Not tov, but tovah, resulting in the adjective phrase, oniyah tovah. This can be helpful in our reading of Hebrew and our composition because it makes very clear which noun is being modified by which adjective. Let's add one more layer, combining the first point about number agreement and the second point about gender agreement. Suppose we have not just one boat, but a cluster of boats, which we are evaluating as good boats, fine boats. Consequently, our noun will shift from oniyah, feminine singular, to oniot, feminine plural. Similarly, our adjective must move from feminine singular, tovah, to feminine plural, tovot. This will produce the adjective phrase, oniot tovot, good boats or good ships. Notice then the spelling changes that take place in adjectives, and these are very consistent, very dependable. changes that take place when we move from a masculine singular to a feminine singular. We'll be adding a kametz he, as we heard in tov to tova. Or if we were to employ the adjective large or big, gadol, it would be a shift from gadol to gadolah. If we move from masculine singular, staying in the same gender, moving to masculine plural, it would be a shift from tov to tovim. Or in the case of the adjective gadol, from gadol to gadolim. What if we were starting with masculine singular and wanted to move out to feminine plural? In that case, tov would become tovot. Gadol would become gadolot. Notice consistency in the endings, which determine the gender of an adjective and the number of an adjective. Not surprisingly, as we lengthen the word, adding these various suffixes to it, it draws away some of the vocalic energy from the earlier syllables of a word. So, as we found with other noun adjustments, such as making a noun plural, similarly, when we add syllables to an adjective, it's going to change the vocalization of some of the earlier syllables in many instances. A degree of end rhyme results from the fact that the plural form of nouns will often resemble the plural form of their corresponding adjectives. For example, you're coming to realize that many masculine nouns, when rendered plural, will end im. When it comes to adjectives, all masculine adjectives rendered plural will end im. Thus, the expression good containers will have the end rhyme shown by kelim tovim. Similarly with feminine nouns. Many, not all, but many feminine nouns rendered plural end in the ot suffix. And when it comes to adjectives, all feminine plural adjectives will end ot. Consequently, you hear the end rhyme in the phrase oniot gedolot, big ships. Some feminine nouns, however, when rendered plural, have the im ending. That's the situation with the feminine noun eir for city. To refer to more than one city, in plural, it's expressed arim. It is, however, still feminine, and so must be accompanied by an adjective which is feminine plural. Arim gedolot is the proper adjective phrase to express large cities. Notice in this situation, the endings will not sound similar, but it is a correct expression because there is gender agreement, feminine plural noun, feminine plural adjective, arim gedolot. The same can take place when a masculine plural may end in ot. Such as, for example, shame, meaning name. To refer to more than one name, the plural is shemot, yet it is masculine. If we wish to say good names, this would call for the adjective phrase shemot tovim. Shemot tovim. Both noun and adjective are masculine, even though the endings do not sound the same. The first link was a numbers link, the second was a genders link, and the third is a definiteness link. What this means is that if the noun is definite, then the adjective must also be definite. Once again, this level of specificity will help us recognize more precisely what the Hebrew is saying. We begin here with some examples of adjective phrases which are indefinite, such as ir tova, or tzoror gadol, onia gedolah, melachim ra'im, kosot ra'ot. In contrast, the next group are definite phrases. Hatzror hagadol, ho'oniya hagadolah, hamlachim hara'im, hakosot hara'ot. Number, gender, and definiteness, then, comprise the three ways that an adjective will agree with the noun that it is modifying. Before concluding with a list of adjectives in their various gender and number forms, it's worth noting that sometimes you'll encounter an adjective which seems to be standing alone. There is no noun to which it's attached, no noun which it is modifying. Such nouns are said to be operating in a substantival usage. Let's turn to the appendix portion corresponding to this segment and explore this a bit further. Here then is the appendix portion corresponding to segment 2.3 bet. When we encounter an adjective with no noun in the surroundings, which it serves to modify, that isolated adjective represents in Hebrew either an abstract idea, or the substantival use of the adjective may represent a generic person or object suitable for the context, so that tov, standing alone, may represent a good person, even though we will not find the Hebrew equivalent of person articulated. As you will discover by the examples included in this appendix portion, such usage regularly will employ the definite article ahead of the adjective. Ha-tov, or he-chacham, the wise person. Ha-ra, or feminine, ha-ra'ah. Ha-katon, ha-gadol. Please pause the video to read over this material, and then return to the main textbook section for segment 2.3 bet. A good way to grow accustomed to the sounds of the various forms of a given adjective is simply to hear them collected together. Gadol, gedolah, gedolim, gedolot, tov, tovah, tovim, tovot, katan, katana, katanim, katanot, ra, ra'ah, ra'im, ra'ot, yavesh, yavesha, yaveshim, yaveshot, kaved, kaveda, kavedim, kavedot, chazak, chazaka, chazakim, chazakot. This concludes our study of employing adjectives to give a little further description to nouns. Due to the complexity of this topic, it wouldn't be surprising if you felt a little overwhelmed by the amount of detail. In view of that, may I invite you to concentrate on the statements that you see highlighted on the screen before you. This is the primary takeaway. This is the distillation, the primary information that you'll want to become comfortable with and quickly recall to mind whenever you're wondering, how do adjectives operate in association with nouns in Hebrew? To summarize then, adjectives which contribute a simple description, that is not forming a sentence but forming a phrase, what we call attributive function of adjectives, they must agree in number, gender, and definiteness with the nouns which they are modifying. Furthermore, you'll find them showing up after the noun, following the noun which they modify. Concentrate on this information and you'll be 90% the way there handling adjectives with a high degree of accuracy.